Welcome to another quiet evening of boring history for sleep. Tonight, we'll drift far beyond the familiar world into a peaceful corner of myth and moonlight. We'll travel to a place known in old stories as Stardust Valley, a land said to rest between dreaming and waking, where the ground itself glows faintly and where the first dragons once learned the art of sleep. In this valley, time moves differently. Days and nights blend like watercolor, and stars linger longer in the sky. The creatures who live here, fairies, deer of silver spots and gentle dragons, live unhurried lives beneath a canopy of twilight. And at the heart of these stories, there is one small dragon. Her name is Lumina. She was said to be born from a falling star. Her scales shimmered like morning frost, and her wings caught even the faintest light. But like many of us, Lumina found it difficult to rest. So tonight, we'll wander quietly through the world that surrounded her, the world that hummed and whispered her to sleep. Close your eyes if you wish. Imagine yourself in Stardust Valley, and let's begin. The rhythm of the valley. Throughout the morning, Stardust Valley hums with quiet, simple patterns, the kind that go unnoticed when the mind is loud. The fairies hum as they work, weaving dew into silver thread for the flowers. The deer graze slowly, lifting their heads in rhythmic unison. And the stargazers take turns, gliding through the air, tracing invisible loops, calling softly to one another. Every motion, every sound feels as though it's been happening for centuries. Nothing urgent, nothing rushed. If you listen carefully, even the ground seems to breathe. A faint vibration under the moss, not mechanical or magical, but alive, like the earth itself is dreaming. And above it all, faint starlight still lingers, refusing to fade completely even under the rising sun. For the creatures of Stardust Valley, this is normal. This unending twilight, not quite day, not quite night, has been their world since the first star fell and kissed the soil. Lumina was told by her fairy friends that this was why dragons were made of both fire and light, born from stars, yet bound to earth. They were meant to balance the waking and the dreaming, to burn brightly, but rest deeply. She wonders what it must feel like to do both. Noonlight calm. By midday, the valley warms, though it never grows hot. The sunlight is gentle, like a drowsy hand laid across the land. Lumina finds her favorite spot, a mossy patch beneath a moonlit willow. Its branches hang low, trailing ribbons of light that sway with the wind. Each leaf seems to hum faintly, and sometimes, if you listen long enough, you can almost hear words forming, soft fragments of ancient lullabies. The fairies rest nearby, their wings folded neatly. A pair of them sit by a pool of still water, painting faint patterns of color on fallen petals. Their laughter is like bells heard from far away, bright but never sharp. In the distance, you can hear the sound of the twilight foxes playing, a rustle of leaves, a splash of paws in the shallows, a faint yip that fades quickly. And somewhere among them all, Lumina curls into the moss, watching a dewdrop slide down the curve of a blade of grass. It trembles, clings, and finally falls. The sound it makes is so small, barely more than a thought, but in that moment it feels like a story of patience, of gravity, of rest. She blinks slowly, her eyelids finally heavy. But before the valley drifts into night again, there are other tales of the first dragons, of how the valley came to glow, and of the lessons learned in the long, luminous dusk. For now, though, let the image settle. The baby dragon resting under the moonlit willow, the valley breathing in rhythm with her, and the faint, eternal shimmer of Stardust Valley around her, calm, patient, unchanging. Soft music fades slightly, like wind moving through distant reeds. And as we leave the quiet morning behind, we move gently onward, into the story of where Lumina came from, and the myths that shaped the valley's sleepy heart. Imagine dawn in Stardust Valley. It doesn't come with trumpets of sunlight or the bold cry of roosters. Here, dawn arrives more softly, like silk being unfurled. The sky, once deep indigo, turns a faint rose at its edges. The stars fade slowly, as if reluctant to leave. The air is cool and sweet, touched with the scent of dew and crystal pollen. Every blade of grass seems to glow faintly, not from sunlight, but from the valley itself, as if the land remembers the stars that slept upon it overnight. You can hear the quiet trickle of a brook winding between mossy stones. The sound is steady, unhurried, almost like breathing. Far above, clouds drift lazily, pale lavender and silver, and from their undersides soft droplets fall, leaving gentle rings in the water below. In this still morning light, Lumina awakens. She stretches her wings. They're still small, almost transparent, and the light catches in them like light in soap bubbles. Tiny reflections scatter across the grass. Her breath leaves faint curls of mist in the cool air. She blinks, slowly, her eyelids heavy with the kind of sleep that never quite came. All around her, life begins its quiet rhythm. From the branches of a crystalline tree, a family of stargazer birds coos to one another, low, rounded notes that echo softly through the valley. Their feathers shimmer like the night sky after rain. A few steps away, the midnight deer rise from the meadow. Their coats are a dark velvet blue, and on their backs, white spots glimmer like constellations. They move in small, graceful groups, calm, deliberate, each hoof step nearly silent. The fairies begin their day too. They are small and weightless, with wings like silver leaves. They don't rush. They never rush. They tend to the valley's gardens, brushing dew from the petals of moonflowers, straightening the stems of sleepy ferns. Their voices, when they speak, are no louder than a sigh, and Lumina watches them all. She feels both part of the valley and apart from it. She wonders what it feels like to move through the world so peacefully, to wake, to stretch, and to rest again, without the restless hum in her chest. As the sun begins to climb, the colors of Stardust Valley deepen. Gold folds into pink, and pink fades into soft blue. The brook now glitters like liquid silver, and the soft sound of it becomes the background music of the day. Lumina walks slowly toward it, her claws pressing gentle shapes into the moss. She lowers her head to the water. The surface is so still that she can see herself reflected perfectly, a baby dragon with curious eyes, rimmed with faint traces of sleeplessness. She listens. The water murmurs as it slides over smooth stones, as though whispering stories too quiet for most to hear. Perhaps, Lumina thinks, this is what calm sounds like. Steady, endless, soothing. She steps into the shallow edge. The coolness wraps around her feet, trickling between her scales. The sensation is grounding, like the valley reminding her to slow down. A butterfly, or something very like a butterfly, flutters by. Its wings are made of translucent glass, catching light from every angle. It lands briefly on her tail, then drifts off toward the sun. Lumina follows its path with her eyes, feeling her heartbeat settle a little slower. The rhythm of the valley. Throughout the morning, Stardust Valley hums with quiet, simple patterns, the kind that go unnoticed when the mind is loud. The fairies hum as they work, weaving dew into silver thread for the flowers. The deer graze slowly, lifting their heads in rhythmic unison. And the stargazers take turns, gliding through the air, tracing invisible loops, calling softly to one another. Every motion, every sound feels as though it's been happening for centuries. Nothing urgent, nothing rushed. If you listen carefully, even the ground seems to breathe. A faint vibration under the moss, not mechanical or magical, but alive, like the earth itself is dreaming. And above it all, faint starlight still lingers, refusing to fade completely even under the rising sun. For the creatures of Stardust Valley, this is normal. This unending twilight, not quite day, not quite night, has been their world since the first star fell and kissed the soil. Lumina was told by her fairy friends that this was why dragons were made of both fire and light, born from stars, yet bound to earth. They were meant to balance the waking and the dreaming, to burn brightly, but rest deeply. She wonders what it must feel like to do both. Noonlight calm. By midday, the valley warms, though it never grows hot. The sunlight is gentle, like a drowsy hand laid across the land. Lumina finds her favorite spot, a mossy patch beneath a moonlit willow. Its branches hang low, trailing ribbons of light that sway with the wind. Each leaf seems to hum faintly, and sometimes, if you listen long enough, you can almost hear words forming, soft fragments of ancient lullabies. The fairies rest nearby, their wings folded neatly. A pair of them sit by a pool of still water, painting faint patterns of color on fallen petals. Their laughter is like bells heard from far away, bright but never sharp. In the distance, you can hear the sound of the twilight foxes playing, a rustle of leaves, a splash of paws in the shallows, a faint yip that fades quickly. And somewhere among them all, Lumina curls into the moss, watching a dewdrop slide down the curve of a blade of grass. It trembles, clings, and finally falls. The sound it makes is so small, barely more than a thought, but in that moment it feels like a story of patience, of gravity, of rest. She blinks slowly, her eyelids finally heavy. But before the valley drifts into night again, there are other tales of the first dragons, of how the valley came to glow, and of the lessons learned in the long, luminous dusk. For now, though, let the image settle. The baby dragon resting under the moonlit willow, the valley breathing in rhythm with her, and the faint, eternal shimmer of Stardust Valley around her, calm, patient, unchanging. Soft music fades slightly, like wind moving through distant reeds. And as we leave the quiet morning behind, we move gently onward, into the story of where Lumina came from, and the myths that shaped the valley's sleepy heart. As Stardust Valley drowses through its golden afternoon, you might wonder how such a place came to be. Every valley has its story after all, and Stardust Valley has one older than the mountains themselves. Long before Lumina was born, before the first moonflower bloomed, before the fairies took root among the ferns, the valley was simply a hollow in the earth, cold and empty. The skies were dim, the rivers had not yet learned to sing. The stars, though bright, were silent watchers in the vastness above. Then one night, or what passed for night in those forgotten ages, a single star fell. It didn't fall in anger or in flame, as some stories say. It drifted, slowly, gracefully, like a candle's spark caught in a breeze. And where it landed, the earth glowed softly, and the air began to hum. From that place, the first dragon of light was born. She was called Aureliath, the elder flame, the first sleeper. Her body shimmered like molten pearl, and her breath carried warmth across the valley. Where she walked, moss began to grow. Where she slept, crystals sprouted like seedlings of starlight. Her presence gave rhythm to the land. When she opened her eyes, dawn would rise. When she rested, twilight would fall. For a time she lived alone, and the valley pulsed with her quiet dreams. Then one evening, as she drifted into slumber, she dreamed of others like her, smaller, gentler, curious. And when she woke, the dream had become real. Tiny dragons, no bigger than her claws, stirred in the moss around her. Their scales reflected her light, their eyes gleamed like reflected stars. They blinked, yawned, and breathed their first sleepy breaths. Aureliath smiled, as dragons do, with a slow exhale that warmed the air, and lowered her wings to shelter them. The fairies came soon after. They were born not of starlight, but of the shimmering pollen that fell from the first moonflowers blooming in the elders' warmth. They fluttered close to the dragons, unafraid. and in their tiny voices they sang lullabies, soft, repeating melodies that filled the valley like mist. From that harmony, the breath of dragons and the song of fairies, the balance of Stardust Valley was formed. The first nights, the early days of the valley were peaceful, though not without their lessons. The young dragons were restless, their hearts still burning with the energy of stars. They chased reflections in the rivers, stirred up winds with their wings, and scattered dew into shimmering clouds. Aureliath watched them kindly, but she knew that if they did not learn rest, their light would dim. And so she taught them the ancient rhythm. Breathe in with the world, and breathe out with the stars. Each night she would lie down upon the valley floor, her body curving like a mountain range. The young dragons would curl along her sides, their scales glowing softly, and she would whisper, "Even stars must sleep, even fire must fade, to glow again." Those words became the valley's first lullaby. Even now, the fairies sing it to their children, and the sound can still be heard when the wind moves through the crystalline trees. The restless ones. But not all dragons found sleep so easily. Among the early generations, there were those who burned too bright, dragons whose wings shimmered with constant motion, whose eyes never fully closed. They were called the Wakeful Kin. They built crystal towers that reached high above the treetops, hoping to touch the stars that had made them. They gathered fragments of light, storing them in glass orbs so that the night would never come. And though they created wonders, shimmering bridges, lanterns that burned forever, they forgot to rest. Their scales began to dim, and their voices grew faint. Aureliath watched with sorrow. She did not scold them, for dragons learn slowly. Instead, she lay down in the valley once more and closed her eyes. And one by one, the fairies dimmed their lanterns. The creatures of the valley grew still. The Wakeful Kin stood among their bright creations, staring into the silence, slowly, gently. They began to hear something they had forgotten, the rhythm beneath the world, that steady, endless pulse that had existed before light or sound. And one by one, they folded their wings, lowered their heads, and slept. Their towers melted back into the ground, the glass returning to crystal, the light to dew. And when they awoke again, they were no longer wakeful. They had learned peace. Generations passed quietly, measured not by seasons, but by the slow movement of stars overhead. Dragons grew smaller, fairies more numerous, and the valley became a tapestry of soft, glowing life. Aureliath faded into legend, said to have dissolved into the light of the sky, watching over her descendants from above. Among those descendants was Lumina. She was said to have been born during the longest night, a night when the stars refused to set. Her egg glowed faintly for 1,000 heartbeats, and when she hatched, her scales reflected the color of dawn itself. The fairies who found her knew she was special. They raised her among their gardens, teaching her songs and tending to her restless heart. But unlike the other young dragons, Lumina struggled to find stillness. She watched the stars too long, listened too closely to the brook, followed every light that moved. The fairies whispered that perhaps she carried a spark of the old Wakeful Kin, that restlessness from long ago. Yet they loved her dearly, for her curiosity lit the valley in ways nothing else could. They told her stories of Aureliath, of the balance, of the importance of sleep, not just for dragons, but for the valley itself. Because in Stardust Valley, rest was not simply comfort. It was part of the world's magic, the cycle that kept it glowing. Echoes of the elder flame. Sometimes, when Lumina sat beside the brook, she imagined she could hear the voice of Aureliath in the water's murmur. Not words exactly, more like the memory of them, a pulse, a cadence. Even stars must sleep. The phrase returned to her again and again, and though she didn't yet understand what it meant, she began to feel it, in the air, in the soil, in the rhythm of the creatures around her. It was a lesson not taught in a single night, but in many quiet ones. Narrator. So the valley's story became her story, a small dragon learning the great patience of the stars. And just as the elder flame once rested to renew her light, Lumina too would one day find her own way to peace. But that moment, the one where dreams and waking finally met, would not come until much later. For now, the valley watches. The fairies hum, and the stars high above keep their ancient vigil over Stardust Valley. And as the legend fades back into stillness, we move gently onward, to the mysteries that linger in the valley's hidden corners, the forgotten ruins, the glimmering crystals, and the quiet secrets that the night creatures guard. The hidden mysteries of Stardust Valley, mystery, archaeology, culture, soft ambient hum, wind through stone caverns, faint drip of water echoing far away. As the day drifts softly toward evening, the valley begins to change. The light thins, the air cools, and the colors deepen into shades of blue and violet. It's a quiet transformation, one that happens not with fanfare, but with grace. When the fairies return to their lanterns and the stargazer birds settle in their nests, the valley reveals another face, its ancient one. Beneath the moss, beneath the roots, lie traces of what came before Lumina, before even Aureliath. Faint whispers left in stone, crystal and song. The singing stones. If you walk slowly through Stardust Valley at dusk, you might hear them first. A faint hum, almost like a note held in the distance. Follow it, and you'll come to a circle of smooth, pale stones rising from the ground. Each one is tall enough to reach a dragon's shoulder, and all are marked with spirals that shimmer faintly in the fading light. The fairies call them the singing stones. When wind passes through them, they resonate, deep, gentle tones that sound like a sigh from the valley itself. Some say they were placed there by Aureliath's followers to mark the rhythm of her breathing, a map of sleep set into stone. Others believe they grew on their own, the earth humming softly in memory of the elders' dreams. When Lumina was very small, she often wandered there, pressing her ear to the stones. The hum felt warm against her cheek, steady, soothing, like a great heartbeat. The fairies told her it was the song of balance. Everything that rests glows again. In time, she learned that the stones were more than relics. They were part of the valley's structure, each one aligned with the constellation above, reflecting starlight into the soil. Through them, Stardust Valley kept its eternal twilight, and though no one truly remembered who first placed them, everyone felt their importance. Ruins beneath the moss. Beyond the singing stones, deeper into the valley, lies a place where the air grows cooler still. Here, the ground dips into a shallow hollow, and the moss thickens into soft green carpets that hide the remains of something older, perhaps older than the dragons themselves. Beneath the moss are archways of translucent quartz, worn smooth by centuries. Some have toppled, some remain half-buried, and all glimmer faintly with internal light, as though stars were trapped within. The fairies avoid these ruins, not out of fear, but out of respect. They say they are the foundations of silence, places where the dreams of dragons were stored while they slept. The air there is still, and sounds seem to fade before they can echo. When Lumina first visited the site, guided by an older fairy, she noticed something unusual. On one of the quartz walls, faint shapes glowed, not letters exactly, but patterns. Circles within circles, connected by soft glowing lines. The fairy explained that these symbols were called dream maps. Each circle represented a sleeping dragon, each line the flow of energy between dreams. When a dragon slept peacefully, its dream joined the others, creating a web that pulsed with soft light across the valley. It was said that this web, this network of quiet minds, was what kept Stardust Valley alive and glowing. The fairy traced the pattern gently with her hand. Every dream, she whispered, is a lantern. Lumina remembered those words. She didn't yet understand them, but she carried them in her heart, as children do with phrases that feel larger than meaning. The fairies' archives. Not far from the dream maps, the fairies maintain what they call the archives of whispered light. Though to most eyes, it's simply a grove of tall, crystal-leaf trees. Their branches are strung with tiny globes that glimmer faintly, each containing a flicker of light. These, the fairies say, are memories, the gentle residue of dreams that have drifted free from sleeping creatures. They float upward as threads of light, and when caught, the fairies preserve them. If you were to stand quietly in that grove, you might see them at work, tiny figures moving among the branches, collecting light with careful gestures, humming as they weave each one into a globe. The hum never changes pitch. It's constant, soothing, unbroken, the sound of focus and patience. And if you listen long enough, you might notice that the globes themselves make a faint melody. Hundreds of tiny tones overlapping, forming what sounds like distant rainfall. Each night, when the fairies rest, the lights flicker softly through the leaves, illuminating the grove in pale gold. It's said that if you sleep beneath them, your dreams will align with the valley's rhythm, slow and peaceful. Many travelers, lost wanderers, creatures from beyond the mountains, once came seeking this place. Some stayed for a night, some never left. Their dreams, too, became part of the valley's light. The crystalline brook. As evening deepens, Lumina follows the sound of the brook once more. It winds through every part of the valley, connecting the singing stones, the foundations, and the fairy grove like a silver thread. The fairies believe the brook carries dreams from one place to another, a messenger between sleeping hearts. Its waters reflect the sky in perfect clarity, even when the stars are hidden by clouds. Lumina lowers her head to drink, and as her reflection ripples, she notices something strange. Tiny symbols shimmer just beneath the surface, faint as mist, impossible to grasp. They move with the current, glowing softly, then fade again. Perhaps they are remnants of the dream maps, washed loose by time, or perhaps they are messages from Aureliath herself, carried endlessly downstream. Either way, Lumina feels calm as she watches them drift, shapes of memory and myth dissolving into silence. The archaeology of stillness. In Stardust Valley, there are no wars to uncover, no monuments to fallen kings. Its archaeology is quiet, measured not in ruins and relics, but in the ways the land remembers. A patch of grass that glows slightly brighter where a dragon once rested. A cluster of stones that hum louder during the new moon. A hollow where dreams still linger like mist. For those who study it, if study is even the right word, the valley is less a place of answers than of presence. Every stone, every leaf holds a faint awareness, and in that awareness lies history. The fairies often say that Stardust Valley doesn't record its past. It dreams it, and when those dreams grow faint, a young dragon like Lumina comes along to remind it to keep glowing, even in restlessness, even in change. The night descends now. As the last traces of daylight fade, the valley transforms once more. The singing stones hum a deeper note, the fairies' lights brighten like clusters of fireflies, the brook reflects constellations unseen anywhere else. Lumina curls near the water's edge, her body haloed by its soft reflection. The ruins, the grove, the stones, all around her, history hums quietly, not demanding to be known, only felt. This is the heart of Stardust Valley's mystery, that its past is not buried but breathing. Every dream adds to its glow, every sleeper keeps it alive. And somewhere, high above, perhaps Aureliath watches, a patient guardian of stillness, smiling faintly at how the story continues. Soft chime fades in, clear like glass touched gently by a fingertip. Narrator, whisper soft. And so, in the hush between stars and soil, Stardust Valley keeps its secrets. But even here, in a land of rest and reflection, there is contrast. For not all lives in the valley are lived the same. Some are of endless wandering, others of tending and care. Some creatures are born to guard, and others to dream. In the next part of our story, we'll turn to those differences, to the contrast between the humble and the grand, the dreamers and the watchers, and to how Lumina learns that even stillness can have many shapes. The harmony of Stardust Valley, ambient soundscape, faint wind through willows, slow heartbeat-like rhythm underneath, barely perceptible. As night returns to Stardust Valley, every creature finds its place within the vast, gentle order of things. Some rise, some rest, some listen to the silence, while others weave music into it. In this place, life is not divided by power or possession. It is divided softly by rhythm. There are those who wake with the moonlight and those who sleep beneath it. Those who wander and those who remain. Those who burn bright for a moment and those who glow quietly for centuries. And all of them together create the slow, unending harmony of the valley. The fair folk and their quiet labors. If you were to drift unseen among the fair folk of Stardust Valley at night, you would find no palaces, no thrones. Their homes are grown rather than built, petals folded into spirals, crystal leaves hollowed into chambers of light. Each fairy has a role, though the roles shift like clouds. There are the weavers of dew, who gather droplets before dawn, stringing them into threads that glisten on the ferns. The tenders of dreamlight, who care for the glowing globes that hold the valley's collected dreams. And the whisperers, who float along the brook, murmuring soft blessings to the sleeping creatures nearby. Their work is never hurried. Each motion has the same quiet dignity as breathing. To the fairies, time is measured not in hours, but in heartbeats of stillness. They believe that a well-tended silence can heal as much as 1,000 words. Their gatherings are small, a circle of light under a flower's bell, a shared song hummed under the stars. They do not celebrate loudly. Their festivals are made of soundless color, petals unfurling, reflections shimmering across the water, wings catching faint starlight. And if you listen closely, their laughter, soft and silvery, lingers in the air long after they've vanished into the leaves. And slower in thought, live in harmony beside them. Where the fairies weave and sing, the dragons watch and rest. Each dragon finds a place of stillness in the valley, a pool, a hollow, a ridge, and remains there for long stretches of time, guarding the balance without ever disturbing it. Their stillness is not idleness, it is patience made visible. They are keepers of the valley's quiet. When a storm gathers beyond the mountains, the dragons breathe softly toward the horizon, calming the winds. When the soil grows cold, they press their bodies close, warming the ground again. And when the fairies hum their lullabies, the dragons hum back, deep, resonant tones that vibrate through the stone and water, joining the valley's song. There is no leader among them. Each dragon knows its place, not because it was assigned, but because it feels right. They live by instinct, by rhythm, by a shared sense of purpose passed down from Aurelia's time. Lumina, still young and learning, often watches them from afar. She notices how they rarely move, yet everything around them changes because of their presence. They are reminders that stillness can shape the world as surely as motion. The wanderers and the watchers. Not all beings in the valley stay in one place. There are wanderers, creatures that drift through Stardust Valley like passing thoughts. The twilight foxes, sleek and quick, roam in small packs, leaving faint, glowing paw prints behind them. The moon moths, whose wings shimmer with dust that glows faintly, migrate in spirals that follow the pattern of constellations. And there are even smaller beings, glow mice, mist hares, pebble turtles, each with its own slow rhythm. They cross paths with the fairies and dragons often, yet no one commands or directs them. The valley moves as one body, each life a heartbeat within it. The fairies once told Lumina that the valley's secret was this: every creature carries a fragment of the same dream. Some move faster through it, some slower, but all a part of the same sleep. That idea comforted her, that even her restlessness had a place in the valley's great breathing rhythm, the contrast of stillness and wakefulness. Yet contrast gives the valley its depth. The fairies rest in their flower homes as the dragons remain awake, half dreaming beneath the stars. When dawn comes, the dragons drowse and the fairies rise to tend the morning light. Neither world fully wakes while the other sleeps. Their cycles overlap like waves, never colliding, always blending. This rhythm ensures that Stardust Valley is never truly still and never truly awake. There are stories of times when one side tried to take more than its share, when the dragons stayed awake too long, or when the fairies sang past midnight. The balance would tremble for a time, and the valley's glow would dim. But the creatures always learned, always returned to harmony, because here, balance is not enforced, it's remembered. The fairies remember the warmth of dragon fire. The dragons remember the fairies' song. Each knows that without the other, the valley would fade into silence, too deep to dream. The Dreaming Council, once every long season, not measured by moon or star, but by the deep pulse of the land, all beings gather for what they call the Dreaming Council. It is not a meeting in the way humans might imagine. There are no words spoken, no decrees issued. Instead, the dragons lie down side by side, their scales flickering faintly. The fairies hover above them, singing in slow, looping tones. The smaller creatures nestle into the grass and listen. Together, they enter a kind of shared stillness, a valley-wide dream. In that dream, they revisit memories of their beginnings, the first light, the first song, the first lesson of sleep. It is said that Aureliath herself once guided these gatherings, though now her presence is felt only as warmth in the air. When the dream ends, the dragons open their eyes, the fairies land gently on their snouts, and the valley breathes out, renewed. No one writes down what was dreamed, because the details don't matter. Only the calm that remains afterward, the quiet assurance that balance endures. Lumina's lesson. Through watching and waiting, Lumina finally begins to understand. She learns that rest is not only the act of closing one's eyes, it is a harmony of trust. To rest is to believe that others will keep the valley safe while you sleep, that the stars will rise where you left them, and the brook will still sing when you wake. She practices the rhythm Aureliath once taught. Breathe in with the world, and breathe out with the stars. At first it feels awkward, too slow for her restless heart. But night after night, as she curls beneath the moonlit willow, surrounded by the hum of sleeping creatures, her breaths begin to match the valley's. And at last, one quiet evening, when the wind moves through the singing stones and the fairies' glow fades into the leaves, Lumina closes her eyes. The stars above flicker softly. The brook whispers its endless lullaby. The air hums with ancient warmth. And finally the little dragon sleeps. Her dreams flow into the valley's web, another lantern added to the constellation of peace that keeps Stardust Valley glowing. Ambient music swells faintly, carrying tones of harp and wind. Narrator, softly. And so the valley continues, unchanging yet alive. Its peace is not silence, but harmony. Every movement, every breath, every sigh, part of the same eternal rhythm. From the smallest fairy to the oldest dragon, from the drifting mist to the sleeping soil, all share the same dream. That even stars, in their endless shining, must rest sometimes. Soft wind fades, only a single sustained tone remains, like starlight turned to sound. And as Stardust Valley glows under the endless twilight, perhaps you too can feel its rhythm. The hush of breath, the warmth of light, the peace that comes from knowing you are part of something vast and gentle. Rest now. Breathe in with the world and breathe out with the stars. And so, we come to the end of our quiet history. The story of Stardust Valley, a place of light and stillness, and of Lumina, the sleepy dragon who learned that rest is not an absence, but a part of life itself. The fairies continue their gentle work beneath the moonlit petals. The brook still winds its silver path through the glowing fields. The singing stones hum softly in their endless circle. And somewhere beneath the willow tree, Lumina dreams, her breath slow and even, her heart in rhythm with the land. The valley glows faintly through the long twilight, as it has done for ages untold. It is not a place of endings, but of continuance. A reminder that even the brightest flames must flicker softly from time to time. Listen closely, you might hear that same rhythm within yourself. The soft pulse that matches the turning of the world. The gentle sway of thought before sleep takes hold. Perhaps, in a way, Stardust Valley was never a distant myth at all. Perhaps it lives quietly within each small moment of rest, in the hush between breaths, in the weightless drift between waking and not just old legends. They are metaphors for calm, for patience, for the quiet courage it takes to stop and breathe and be still. A last look at the valley. Imagine, just for a moment, that you are there again. The sky above you glows faintly, a deep indigo dome strewn with stars that never fade. The moss beneath your hands is cool and soft. You can hear the brook whispering nearby, the same steady melody that lulled Lumina to her first true sleep. The air smells faintly of moonflowers and warm stone. The fairies' lights shimmer through the leaves like distant lanterns, and all around the valley hums, slow, peaceful, and eternal. It doesn't ask anything of you. It doesn't rush. It simply invites you to rest. You can almost see Lumina curled up beneath her willow, her silver scales reflecting starlight like ripples on water. Her wings move slightly as she breathes, in and out, in and out. Each breath melting into the valley's quiet music, and then you feel your own breathing begin to match hers, slow, calm, effortless. Closing, present is never hurried, it flows, and the future is not feared, it waits, softly, like the next dream. Every creature, from the smallest fairy to the largest dragon, understands that peace is not found in stillness alone, but in the harmony between motion and rest. That same balance lives within you. Each quiet breath, each soft heartbeat, is a small echo of the valley's eternal calm. So, as the stars hum gently above and the earth sighs beneath you, you can let go of the day. You can let your thoughts drift like fireflies in the mist. You can close your eyes and feel yourself becoming part of the same rhythm, the rhythm of Stardust Valley. Sleep well, traveler. Dream gently, and remember, even stars must sleep.